Well, hello, Brainstorms audience, and welcome to the March edition of Brainstorms. As you know, March is a very important month for us here at Resurrecting Lives Foundation, since it is National Traumatic Brain Injury Month. We spend this time to speak to our folks at the Capitol building and our legislators and people in our community about the facts that untreated and undiagnosed traumatic brain injury leads to horrible things, with nearly 1 million veterans from the global war on terror struggling with that daily. And these struggles include such things as depression, substance abuse, unemployment, homelessness, and the final act of suicide, which is actually growing among both our military and our veterans. So it's a very important month for us. It was a very important month for Julius Caesar. I always like to bring this up, that he used this as the first month of the year, March, Mars, the god of war. And this was when he would take people out of their homes, out of Rome, and begin marching for his campaigns. The interesting thing is that Mother Nature marches herself during this month. And it's a time of renewal and bringing things back to life and resurrection. And the reason why I think everything is so remarkable here is that we have one of the most remarkable guests we could ever think of, someone who's actually lived that, who's lived the march on both sides of the coin, both the destructive natures of war, which war naturally is, and the rejuvenation of the creative mind. And it's with that I have the greatest pleasure of getting a warrior to match our theme today. And I'd like to introduce to our audience a person who I'm just meeting, but reading a lot about. Dante Biss-Grayson, welcome to your audience.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. My name is Dante Biss-Grayson. I'm a veteran, USAF Air Force. I'm also from the Osage Nation, a tribe out of Oklahoma. My Osage name is Waseata, which means first son of the Eagle Clan. Okay. And I am part of the Eagle Clan. I'm an artist and fashion designer as well. So thank you for having me.
And activist. Let us not forget one of your roles that you incorporate into everything. I've got to ask you a little bit about the Eagle Clan, because the eagle itself is a totem from what I'm reading. You know, I spend a lot of time reading about Native American totems, and it kind of, to me, shows what your life is like as well. Could you explain just a little bit about why you can so well kind of speak with the eagle?
Sure thing. Eagle Clan, my people are from the sky and the earth. There was two branches.
Okay.
And for me, the eagle is I'm a first son, which is a Lompa. And, okay, duties and roles and responsibility in my community and my tribe are one of leadership, and being of a warrior class. Okay. So an eagle in the sky is also inspiration for hope, seeing, such a proud, beautiful totem, as you say.
Yes.
And in our tribe, it's the clan. So, incorporating that as far as not only in my brand, but in my life as a new warrior in these modern worlds.
I'm wearing one of your shirts here that I really like, and I've got to say, eagle, of course it's our nation's bird as well. It's a symbol of the United States of America. But when I was looking at this, I love the fact that it was black and white. And those here in Ohio and in California who have heard me speak before, know that there's nothing more black and white than taking care of the people who volunteered their lives, for yours. So I really do appreciate that. I was really trying to get, and for all of our audience, there'll be links to this podcast to your Sky Eagle collection. I love the long sleeve black and white with the sword on the back, kind of with eagle wings around it. But it wasn't for sale. So, I'm going to keep checking back just to see, because I tend to be a bit of an advocate of myself. I'm not brave enough to be an activist yet, but a bit of an advocate. And that speaks, your art speaks to so much of what you did. But maybe if you could let us know, what was it that you did in the service? Was it, as I know some of it, you've served so many places, Iraq and Afghanistan, so many missions, even in Italy. What was your service like, please?
Sure. Growing up, I studied in Holland, and I studied fine art and design at the academy over there, but my minor was in philosophy. And one of the things, Aristotle was talking about being a citizen is one of serving your community. And looking at the numbers of Native American veterans, we were the highest percent of any minority and race that volunteers. So in the military, it was my time to serve my community in that way. And so I kind of went in open general. It was just a matter of like, okay, let's get in there. I was living overseas, so I processed through Germany.
Oh, wow.
I was living in Iceland at the time.
Okay.
I was part of a crash fire rescue teams, which is basically like a military firefighter.
Yes.
And just like a Swiss Army knife of like different things we would do, base response, munitions, nuclear weapons response, that type of thing. Also hazmat rescue missions. So there was all these different things. 9/11 happened while I was serving, and then 9/11 happened, and I was stationed in Italy. Okay. And that just was the game changer, as far as like we knew it wasn't going to be over overnight, that type of thing. Right. And they always teach us, never leave anybody behind. So I did my 4 years, and then I went into the reserves, but I was also a DoD contractor. So that's when, I was in the first wave that went into to Kuwait, and then right as the war started into Baghdad, and then different deployments there, and then a lot of deployments in Afghanistan, and then and then the final one was in Kuwait. So the missions there were, supporting the warfighter, supporting the troops,
gotcha.
Anything between like firefighting, 101, to actually going to, helicopter crashes beyond the wire, in the middle of nowhere on the Pakistan border, that type of thing, recovering a lot of troops. So it was just a never-ending, daily traumatic incident that just kind of like turned into this giant Rolodex of traumatic incidents in my memory.
I'm sure, and the one thing I hear in everything that you did was survival. And not only does your survival depend on you, but all these other people as well. So you had not only the survival, but the responsibility for others surviving. And on a day-to-day basis, I think it's very hard for the civilian world. And I keep trying to tell, we've got to know this better. 99% of this country doesn't serve. And we need to understand that these day-to-day events become your life. And like you said, with that much adrenaline and that much on the line, they're embedded well into your brain, and your brain doesn't want to shake loose of them. If I could ask you just a question. So you went into the U.S. Air Force. Okay. I really have spent much of 2024 trying to explain to our nation about the service of our indigenous populations, because it is far and above what anybody else does. I believe that your nation, almost 90% of the people in Osage Nation serve in the military. Is that correct? Because, Lakota tribe is 82%, Navajo tribe's 86%. We're talking, most everyone serves the nation that gave them the shaft. Seriously, right. Explain that a little bit for me, please.
Yeah. I'm not sure exactly the numbers. I have seen the aggregate. It's somewhere around like 19% of like total
of natives, all that. Yes. Right.
Yeah. And so it's kind of a paradox in a lot of ways. And some of my work delves into that, my social justice, as far as the warrior's paradox. Cause you look at, generational trauma, manifest destiny, and all these different, historical incidents that happen to my people. And then, fast forward to today where it's, we still have that warrior spirit, and we still want to serve this new country in a way. And maybe that's the great thing about America as well. It's this whole mix of different cultures. But being able to, still hold on to those warrior ethos in a new way, in a new light, in our new tribe, that type of thing. So yeah, it's a huge, all the way from World War I with the code talkers,
right?
Because there was initially, there was like Pawnee, there was Osage, there was Navajo, and then there was World War II code talkers, which people are more familiar with. Basically, a lot of ways, ending the war. Right. They were a key component of the success of World War II. So it's things like that kind of reflect on the progressive nature, I feel, of our warriors and of our Native communities, wanting to show the world that we're still here, but we can also succeed.
Yeah. I find that warrior spirit amazing. My brother is an internal medicine physician, and he served in the public health service in Shiprock, New Mexico, on Navajo Nation. Okay, so that was my first. I mean, I'd never been anywhere outside of Ohio. Okay, and he plops himself in Shiprock, New Mexico. We go out and see him, and the first thing that struck me, and I feel that with you too, is the reverence. The reverence for the land. And I'm looking out at a desert. I don't have great vision anyhow, to tell you the truth. And I looked out, on this desert, those different shades of grays and browns, and thought, I would die out here because I can't even tell the shadow differences of, is there something there to eat or not? How do you what I'm saying is that reverence for the land, I feel, is also definitely reflected in your art, in your fashion design. If you could explain a little bit about what this land means to you, I think that would be a lot for our audience.
Absolutely. For natives, the creator, our God, as far as where we come from, it's a cycle of life and having respect for, the spirit. There's also an ethereal. I grew up with my ceremonies.
Okay.
And that's like, the oral tradition of music handed down, generation. And we're talking a couple hundred years of these ways that, reflect on a reverence for the land, because we know we give respect for where we came from. And that's a huge aspect of ceremony, is acknowledging that and then living in a way that, respects it as well, because, we're here, on this planet and we see a lot of atrocity, but we also know that, from the land, there's a lot of healing, like burn scars, for instance. There's a lot of fires in California, and then in New Mexico, there's a lot. And I always, kind of compare it where, like, yes, this whole kind of like tabula rasa happens where we just clean the slate of the land, but then this rebirth always happens. And us as people have that ability to heal and grow. So in my fashion design, incorporating, the designs of, eagle, for instance, is a huge one, animals from the land, the linear ribbon work, which is materials from, the land, but also making them like modern and contemporary for everybody to kind of enjoy, versus, appreciating versus like appropriating, the different designs, or what people think of Native Americans is very cliche. So that's one huge mission of the Sky Eagle collection is educating on this journey that, Native Americans are still here. And, we have lawyers, we have politicians, we have teachers, we have doctors, they're all natives, and it's like, a lot of people are like, oh, it's like this Disney caricature. And so fashion and art in a lot of way can not only like show the story, but it tells the story and the history of where we've been, but also where we're at right now.
That is amazing. So a little bit, if I could ask you about your timeline. So you were in the Air Force for how many years?
I was in there for 4 years.
Okay.
And then inactive, like another 4. So,
okay. I thought,
but all
8.
told, like downrange,
Yes.
as they say, like overseas, I was over 10 years.
That's an amazing. So you had some things, you're dealing with life or death, you're dealing with survival. You mentioned in some of the notes that you come back, I imagine, to the United States from your, and it's really hard to find some help. Let's talk about medical care. Let's talk about family care. What happened when you got out? Where did you land? And from there, how did you make what you are today?
Sure. I mean, I tried to like cycle back to the world a couple times.
Yeah.
And then first time I got back, I'm like, nah, this isn't for me. The war's still going on.
Yes.
I need to get back over there. There's still people fighting, and I still want to do my part.
Wow.
So I think that was kind of the loop. And it was a really long conflict too. I mean, not
Yes.
everybody thought it would last so long. So yeah, I tried to come back to the States a couple times, and that didn't work. And I got into some bad habits and suicidal, and that was there was not really a good catch-all like a from the VA or whatever. It's just like make an appointment, here you go. Right. And then if anybody's ever trying to get through the VA, like just making an appointment is a challenge and is very triggering alone, just to like get on the phone, and then you're on hold, and then you get transferred, and then somebody hangs up on you, and then it's like this whole thing, and you're just like, do you even want to help? Like, what is this?
Right.
So at the final time, after like my 3,000 day downrange, is when I finally, like, that's when I got married to my wife, Yanti, and she's been like super helpful, in my healing journey.
Right.
And then my daughter Ella was born. So I knew that, like, I had to shift my mission,
Okay.
That's when I started unpacking everything as well.
Okay.
And I found out about the stat of 21 veterans killing themselves every day.
Mm-hmm.
And some say it's the right number or wrong. I don't know. But one veteran every day is too much for me.
Right.
And so that's when I opened up my studio again, because I finally got into the VA.
Okay.
And they're just like, okay, here's some medications.
Oof.
I turned into this zombie.
Right.
And it was just like, I was like, there's got to be a better way. I'm like, not really living happily. You know what I mean? And these memories are just like flooding me every day, like, where it's just like, I can't even move.
Okay.
Because for those 10 years, like, they would come back and forth. But when I finally transitioned, it was just like this floodgates opened.
Right.
So finding out about those suicide rates, it was troubling, and it really pissed me off. And it's like my new mission to, like, well, what are we doing about it? And, it's like, sure, I could, like, run for Congress and do some legislation or whatever. But I was like, art is also a way to make a statement, and
Right.
so I painted 21 abstract expressionist pieces using butcher knives, and just really trying to rip that Band-Aid off and, like, externalize that emotion.
Right.
And that's what really started me on the road to, like, infusing, social commentary, social justice with my art and my designs. And ever since then, it's been up and down in the first couple of years, but I've created, I still have the storm is way on the horizon,
Okay.
it's still there every day,
Right.
those memories, but I'm able to, live happily better than I was.
Right. I noted that on one of our notes back and forth, you mentioned that it's difficult for any veteran to get here. Let's get serious here. But when you are working caught between the Indian, health service, Native American health service, but our government may or may not show up for on a daily basis, and the VA, you're talking with two government entities, and it doesn't have the same that, like, here in our big cities, Columbus, Ohio being close here, with lots of good medical care, lots of competing, privatization of medical care. I think it's very difficult, and it kind of speaks to the fact that, Dante, and correct me if I'm wrong, but my statistics looking up, if you're a Native American veteran, your longevity is at least a decade less than if you're a Caucasian or Hispanic or Asian. Asian being the highest, almost 2 decades longer than the Native American. So I would love to, this podcast I consider is the beginning of a relationship, not just the one and done, because my vets will tell you, once I got you, it's like, what can you teach me that we can teach other veterans to help them, So how did you fight through the very difficult healthcare systems you had to deal with? Or did your family help? Yanni, did she help?
Well, to be honest, I've given up on the VA,
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I've just made that decision to take care of it myself as far as, any healthcare. I did finally find a therapist after a couple of years of finding that really, really helped me.
Okay.
And, I go back to the therapy, and that helps. But you're right. A lot of these communities, Native Americans are, resources and capabilities are nominal,
right,
as far as, like, healthcare, as far as access to healthcare, as far as education, that type of thing. So I could totally see the stats reflecting,
correct,
less long of life, that type of thing. But for me, like, yeah, I want to go to the VA. I want to give them another chance, but I've tried so many times, and I don't want to be like, oh, just crying about problems with no solutions. There's got to be some solutions out there. There's got to be ways to navigate through this system. And then you got this whole TRICARE system that's like this referred care kind of deal. Yeah. And that's a whole nother maze, because you go into there and you already got some people who are, like, jaded about the whole system or their contracts. And they don't really truly feel the mission. Right. And the quality of care, just to get to me picking up the phone to getting an appointment is insanely difficult. And then they put you on auto robocall and you get all these calls. And I was like, I can't meet this schedule. Can I reschedule? And it just turns into this whole thing, and then at that point you get so frustrated, you get re-triggered, and then you start having like flashbacks while you're talking to the VA. I don't know, man. Something definitely needs to be addressed with that. Maybe like solution wise, not saying get rid of the VA, but maybe get a system where if you are disabled and have those benefits, where you can go to any healthcare in the United States. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, that would just be like the macro solution. Like I can walk in, I'm in Taos. Yeah. There's a great therapist here, and I have this card that can pay for it. However you guys want to deal with the business of it, but yeah, I can go see this person and not have to worry about all this this big runaround. So yeah, I'm still a little bit chapped about that whole system.
Yeah, well, that's a really good thing that you brought up. And I say stay tuned because, see, one of the things that I thought we're going to get to your Cannes Film Festival pretty soon here, because that's what caught my eye with you. But we're holding our foundation in kind of collaboration with the Forbes Foundation are going to be completing a book this year about those specific things. And one of the major chapters is about why is this not a gold standard? Our veteran healthcare should be the gold standard healthcare system. And I want to bring up to DC, and you will definitely be invited. Right,
all right, I'll be there.
The idea that they have in Australia of a gold card. Okay, so you're a veteran from Australia, you're given a gold card. That gold card gets you free medical care for the rest of your life. That gold card gets you an education up to either a graduate or a master's level. I'm not sure of those specifics. And that gold card gets you the first interview for employment in any place that you want to apply for. That's the least we could do for the 1% of our nation that volunteers their lives for ours. So I will definitely be talking. So be thinking about something gold in your artistic world there, okay?
Nice.
I'm sure you'll come up with something. The other thing I wanted to touch on is, again, kind of like the juxtaposition of war and peace, for instance. I remember I've interviewed literally a couple thousand veterans from the global war on terror by now, and one of the first guys said, Doc, the opposite of war ain't peace. It's not peace. It goes, peace is just quiet. He goes, it's rebuilding. And I said, it kind of reminded me the little line from the musical Rent. The opposite of war isn't peace, it's creation. And that being stated, one of the favorite books that I read that my veterans give me books to read. Doc, I read this book, read it. It'll really help your brain, because they know that I had a klutzy brain injury, nothing brave, nothing courageous, just klutzy. And it was amazing to me because it states right brain is where God lives. That's where things are born. I was a totally left-brained math science person, that's it. Didn't write poetry, I got a brain injury and all I can do is write poetry, and I'm saying all I can do, I don't remember chemistry, and yet there's a certain life force that goes with that. Could you explain to our audience what clicked in your brain? Because you kind of went back to your artistic brain after you were in all of this, kind of the fight or flight mode for a long time, and you need quiet time for creation. Tell us just a little bit about what came over you at that time.
Right. I mean, I grew up as an artist, and I'm still an artist, and it was one of those ones where, once I joined the military, that wasn't really a focus, or didn't have a lot of time to really, express those type of ideas. But you're right. I mean, for me, there was this one quote by like Ethan Hawke. He was talking about, art is a necessity in community and society. A lot of people are like, oh, don't need this, don't need that. But it's one of those reflective, areas of life that if an artist can reflect on what is going on now, it can also inspire some action. It can also help people process. It can also help innovation with new ideas. Right. So they also talk about it in business management. Having an artist or a creative mindset on your team or your C-suite is very difficult, but it's also very needed because you have all these people who are laser focused on the black and white, the X, Y, and Z, the outcome, the mathematics of it. But if you have that creative mind, it helps kind of like put a new perspective on it. So, and I'm not saying, art is the end all be all healing method for all, traumatic incidents for veterans, but it's definitely one tool in the toolbox. It's definitely, for me, it helps me every day. Like I write poetry, I do paintings, I do fashion, and it's this never ending kind of just like, I got these ideas, I have these ideas, and at the end of it, I feel great. I feel like I just ran a couple miles, and I'm just like, oh, I feel clear. And then the next day happens. So like, having that creative mindset is useful, and finding the right niche is great as well. Cause I have friends, they get into ironwork or something like that.
Right.
And it's something with their hands. And it's like this whole, like, like healing process as you are going. So it's very Zen in a lot of ways, because I really like the Zen philosophy.
Yes.
So yeah, I think it can be very useful for a lot of people who find it.
And to your point, you had to get off those medications you were put on, because it does make you zombie-like, and it literally squelches all of that possible brain activity. I mean, it squelches the interconnection of the neurons, the chemicals that you need, the endorphins that you need for that. So I find, and I think we're getting more and more literature, even in the medical field, proving that art it's a motivator. And when you say, you write the poetry, but there's like 10 of our vets reading your poetry saying, oh man, this is really cool. You know what I mean? It's contagious. Then yes. the birth, the renewal is contagious. And one of the reasons why, and actually our foundation was critiqued, if not criticized, in the early years when we were forming. Why, Dr. Gordon, would you call this the Resurrecting Lives Foundation? Are you a religious nut? That question actually came to me from a member of, the legislation. I'll just go with that. Okay. And, I said to them, I don't really know what to say to you. Have you seen our young men and women coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan? They're zombies. And then they go to the VA and they're given like 19 pills. In one study that I did, 19 pills was the least amount of pills that these young 20-somethings were on, and they'd never been on a pill before they went to war. Okay. I said, they are like the night of the living dead. It's not that I'm trying to make them better. We are literally trying to bring them back to life. And I do believe that creating something of your own, having a voice of your own, being able to share it with others does help do that. And you're really speaking to that today.
Thank you.
Well, okay, so now I have to ask you. All righty. So for our audience that may or may not know the tragedies, and that's not even a term that I can use to say what happened with your nation, the Osage Nation. I remember when the book first came out, Killers of the Flower Moon, listening to it, and the two gentlemen in the audience here, I was telling them before we got on here, I said, I literally remember listening and suddenly getting to a couple points there where I literally pulled the car off the side of the road and said, I can't continue to listen and drive. Tell us a little bit about that history and what that history has done for and to you.
Sure. Killers of the Flower Moon is a book. It's based off of my people. I'm the great grandson of Henry Roan, which was one of the first headright owners murdered, and is one of the first FBI cases when the FBI was forming. Basically, it was a wholesale murder of people, my people, who had found oil on our land. And overnight, we became the richest people on the planet. Per capita. And so that definitely raised a lot of targets on our backs. People would marry my people and then murder them so they can inherit the headrights and the oils. And the book brings to light that time in my history, in my people's history. But also a lot of people forget, it was happening up until 1990s, these type of incidents. And even to this day, there's people who have this headrights, these oil monies, who have them ill-gotten, bottom line. So then that book was written, and then there was a big movie that was made, Uncle Martin Scorsese, as we've adopted him.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, he's a really good guy. He's just really motivated. He's a true visionary.
Yes.
And so he, at Apple Films and Paramount, and then Leo DiCaprio, and it just turned into this huge thing. My sister was one of the art directors. She got onto the guild there.
Okay.
And then all my family's in the movie. You know, we little spots. I'm in the movie.
Oh, okay. I'll have to
Uh,
go
no,
revisit that.
I played the Osage artist. I'm in the very beginning, no beard,
Yes,
painting a picture.
I
So it was
gotcha. Okay.
I'm glad, you know, it was made. There was a lot of, you know, as with everything, you know, other opinions that, you know, it should have been only focused on one or two people, you know, versus like these big, you know, stars. But, you know, Marty and his team, they did it right. They came in, they consulted with us. That was the time for people, if they had any issues with it, to raise concerns. At the
Correct.
beginning, I think it was going to be like one of those white hat savior type of movies, you know, old westerns. The big white cowboy hat comes in and saves the day, like John Wayne kind of thing. And then
Uh-huh.
they realized that. That's why DiCaprio took the role that he did. He kind of changed it up.
Oh, okay.
And then eventually it went to Cannes in south of France, and we had already been planning for a fashion show over there
Okay.
with this production company up in Canada. And we're like, you know, if the movie's there, great. If not, you know, we'll still be in south of France and still headline, you know, sharing fashion with the world. And then the movie got picked up in Cannes, and that was the premiere. And then our fashion show was at the same time, and it was amazing cross cultural understanding of what was going on. So yeah, and even in France, we have a connection with Montauban, which is a town south of France, where I think in the early 1900s or 1800s, something like that, some of our Osages went over there, and that's like our sister city. So
Oh,
we have a
okay.
connection to the French culture. We were also French scouts as well, some of us.
Oh, really?
And so it's a whole French thing, I guess. But yeah, the con experience was amazing. It really it was great to show the world that, you know, we're still here, share our story, share our history, our culture, and then also show them some awesome fashion.
And that's just one of those things that I call divine chance. You were going to be there for a fashion show, and oh, by the way, the movie, you know, well talked about, well acted, well written movie is at the same time. I want to read for you because I don't want to miss a word here of what drew me to you instantaneously. Okay, and this was something that was in KOSU. Is that KOSU? So it said Indigenous fashion design, both traditional and modern, made a big splash on the red carpet during the premiere of Killers of the Flower Moon at the 76th Annual Cannes Film Festival. Indigenous design and activism had a strong presence off the red carpet too. And I stopped. And this was because I deal with veterans who are struggling and having some issues. And you know, that middle of the night time is a horrible time. You know, I'm usually up looking at emails about 4:30 or so Eastern Standard Time. And so I'm doing, and then this thing just kind of blinks up like it, you know, in my periphery. And I go, what is this? And then suddenly I clicked on that thing and go, okay, who is this?
Nice.
This is someone I'm meant to see. You know, this is someone who can really help. You know, 23 was after we had a lot of issues in our nation with burnings of cities and, you know, racial unrest and this divisiveness. And I said, you know what? You were the person who brought to mind, I go, you know, the United States military is the most diverse population we have. And not only is every person, and for instance, like we said, we've already established that our Native Americans are there in numbers far greater than anyone else. Not only does everybody get along, but they guard their buddy with their life as well. So I turn to the American military and to our veterans as being kind of like what the United States needs to come back to. And you are all part of that. It's just very interesting to me that we're going to be in a year of change in D.C. And as my veterans will always tell me in The Art of War, the line is, with change, there is great opportunity. Let's seize this opportunity and see what we can do. And I think you did it in a huge way there. And you did it in a way of a lot of powerful people, you know, got to see what you were saying and what you were doing. What kind of came out as a result of that wasn't present in your life before?
Sure. I mean, we started Sky Eagle Collection, named after our daughter, Ella Sky Eagle.
Okay.
And it was kind of, you know, just a small family project. I had some designs, you know, my wife had designs, and we kind of were like, well, we'll just stay regional, you know, go to powwows. And then the pandemic hit, you know, and then we started like, okay, really start focusing on the studio, what the designs are. And then we had a lot of like feedback. We would sell out collections within 24 hours and it would just be like gone, So
Yes.
Then con happened, and that really just kind of elevated. It was like putting gasoline on a fire. Because we were like perfectly positioned on like social media, and we were doing e-commerce and all these things all these big fashion houses are trying to get into. We were already there. Yeah. And then so, we have our, pushing our ribbon dress, lace couture, which is the evolution of, a traditional item, but it's actually now contemporary of how we're doing it. And it's right next to Leo DiCaprio. It's not right next to Tim Cook, the head of Apple. It's right next to Uncle Marty. All these people. It's in these spaces. And we're like, okay, let's share with the world because our thing is, do and then share, that type of thing. And it just really elevated the brand. It took it into another stratosphere, and we're forever grateful. We got invited to Marty Scorsese's house in Manhattan. We met him, and it was just, and then he flew us out for like a private screening as well. So it was just like really honored, and having that experience, I mean, it was amazing. We showed the world that, Native American, veterans and fashion can succeed on these global stages.
And succeed you are in taking off as well. I'm smiling because, again, with my brother being on the Navajo Nation for a couple of years, I read a lot of the story. In fact, every story of Tony Hillerman, who is the writer who wrote about murder and intrigue in the Navajo territory. And I remember that Leaphorn, the main detective there, always said, there are no coincidences. And Tony Hillerman brought that home, and there's no coincidence that you just happened to be there. This was all. When I talk about God, I my God is the ultimate scriptwriter. He's the ultimate Uncle Martin Scorsese, because he takes something that happened to you as a young man, and plays it back 20 years later, and boom, it's like, oh, success overnight, really? Success overnight, but lots of trauma and living went into that success. And is your studio in Taos? Are you in Santa Fe? Are you in both? Or how do people reach you?
I was born in Santa Fe, but I grew up, I lived in LA a lot, Montana, and then on my reservation in the summers. And I spent a lot of time with my grandpa. He was one of them, our last full bloods. Okay. But so we were always kind of like, going to powwows, trading. So kind of nomadic, like a modern nomad kind of thing, kind of like how we were back in the day. But yeah, Taos is where we're located now. Okay. That's where our studio is. I bought some land out in the country, and it's just, super peaceful. Mm-hmm. It's a great community. It's very art supporting. So we have a shop here, and then we have our studio here, and it's, family run and all that. So yeah, it's amazing. But like I said, e-commerce, like that's where we really reach people. Like the in-person maybe accounts for 5% of our sales, but we have sales in Sweden, New Zealand, Australia, Eastern Europe, all over America, Canada. So e-commerce is the new world that we're in, and especially with social media. A lot of people are like, oh, the downsides of it, but there's also some really positive things on this global community scale, where we're able to, not only just like, here's my work, but also educate people on, the backgrounds, the histories, and, what it really means. So I think that's useful.
Well, and yours is like, here's my work, here's my story, here's our power. I mean, that's what I get from there was one particular thing online I saw, and I couldn't catch the message, mainly because my vision is not very good when I'm looking on the internet, but where you had a whole group of people who walked down at the end of a show, and then they stood up, and every one of the things that they had on their back, the dusters that they were wearing, or the jacket, spelled, things for people to do, gave them, here's your point, here's where you need to go forward. And I don't know if you even know which one I'm talking about with that, but it was just a message. You gave a message at the end of that every single person who became an artist with the way they were wearing what you had. And then you showed up with your white hat that is your signature. So why did we not get the white hat today? That's what I got to know. What does your white hat stand for? Your white cowboy?
You can't wear white. No.
Oh, is that what it is? Okay.
It's a fashion thing. This is what I wear in the winter. And then,
I gotcha. Okay.
in the springtime, I wear the other hat because it's like cooler. But this one's actually a little bit warm. This is it's a nice hat that I wear sometimes.
I gotcha. Okay, I gotcha. What else how do people reach you? Like, I found you easily for the Sky Eagle collection, and what I found was interesting is so many of the things I wanted were not yet available. Sold out. So I go, okay, wait a minute here. What can we do here now? Can we order ahead? I signed up for your newsletter so I can kind of see what's going on. But we'd love to put whatever you want us to put, like I said, on our website and out to social media as well. So how do people reach your art and reach your fashion?
Sure. In person, we're by appointment only in Taos.
Okay.
So then you can do like a fitting or like a sneak peek or whatever of some of our collection. And then online, social media, all of them are at Sky Eagle Collection. You got the Instagram, the Facebooks.
Gotcha.
We're even on Red Note now, which is like the new transition into opening up culture with China.
Whoa,
it's pretty interesting to see these new platforms kind of grow.
Mm-hmm.
So you can find us there, and then also SkyEagleCollection.com. If you search us on Google, we'll be the first one in there, Sky Eagle Collection. It's just like we've had millions and millions of views. So like our trending algorithm is just like it'll go straight to the Sky Eagle Collection. Okay. But yeah, we're pretty open about as far as like, if you direct message us, any questions. And as far as like the collections, we have a subscription now versus a newsletter.
Oh,
and
okay.
Those are those are our VIPs. They get a notice, like a text and an email a couple days actually before our collection launches.
Oh, wow. That'd be cool.
That's the key, because right now, like it's hard to keep inventory on hand, which is always a good problem to have,
Right.
And we're trying to branch out into like having more sizes, which is a factor that, it kind of duplicates or like multiplies the amount of items you have to have. Right. But I really want to have it, accessible to all people. Mm-hmm. It's new native fashion for all, and all sizes as well. Cause like the whole, you got to be a 00 on the New York Fashion Week, tall, skinny, and all this kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, but like I want to have sizes for everybody. Like we call them the big aunties, the big uncles, and all that. Like people are different sizes. I'm 6'1" and 250. Like I'm not fitting into everything, So like I want to make fashion for everybody to enjoy.
Yeah, well, I think you really have accomplished that. And I will say that when I watched the first thing about the first video about the con, it was a shock to me to see you suddenly come. And I mean, you walk with power. I mean, you really do. It's a gentle type of command, but you definitely do, gently command the entire audience. And I thought that was phenomenal. What we've been doing, and I'll give you a couple seconds to think about this, because I meant to tell you this in advance and I didn't have a chance. But the theme this year is we like to end our podcast with a quote, a quote, something that led you on to that. And I'll let you think about that. Why I share with the audience what mine was, because I was told that this was a Native American message, and it may or may not, because when I looked it up, I saw that maybe Aesop's table, I'm not sure. But so many times, I do podcasts and I go to Washington and I, try to help write legislation, and I go talk to, but I don't do anything dangerous. Okay. There's nothing that I do that's dangerous. My mouth may get me into trouble, but that's going to be it. So one of my veterans at one point in time said to me, the Native Americans say, when people tell you you're courageous, this is what you need to say. It's easy to be courageous from afar. And I thought, oh, that is me. I mean, I was petrified of flying, but I was flying here or there, giving presentations and talking to our government about how we need to stand up and face the consequences of these 20 years of war, But I wasn't flying to Afghanistan. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like I was flying to D.C. It's a scary place, but not Afghanistan scary. I wasn't flying to Kuwait. I wasn't flying to Iraq. None of the places that you were at. So that is the one that kind of I say to our veterans, I'm not courageous. I'm just kind of mouthy. And I really don't like injustice. There's something about it. I don't know whether it's my Catholic upbringing or watching too many movies like Cool Hand Luke, and that injustice really bothers me. And the injustice to our Native American cultures really bothered me when I would be visiting my brother. So if you could teach our audience one thing today, what is it that you would like to teach?
I would say it's simple. I'm a big fan of Zen, and I think the tagline that we use sometimes, and it's very fashion focused, but it has a lot more meaning, and it's be you, be the trend, and that connotation meaning one, find yourself, who you are, be true to yourself, but also don't follow. Don't. What is the, I got to do this. I got to do this. Switch it around where you're leading. You're the one who enjoys what you want, and then you go get it. So you be that trend. You be that leader. So very simple. Be you. Be the trend. I really like that because it really encapsulates. Fashion can be like healing, really so much because a lot of people they've been in the White House with my clothes. They've been on the red carpet and in the Oscars, that type of thing, and they're like, when you walk in there, when you're looking good, you feel good. It's like that old quote from like Trading Places. You look good, you feel good. Because when you go into a room with Skygo collection, you're turning heads. I guarantee you somebody's going to come up to you and be like, what is that? How is that? And then personally, you feel like yourself. You feel very strong. It's like this new warrior clothes. It's like this new, when you go hunting, when you're at war, you have this ceremony of putting on your battle jacket, your vest, your plates, all this kind of thing. Well, it's the same thing in modern society. These ladies, these guys who love fashion, that's their battle gear. They go out there in couture, but when they're out there, people are like, we love this. What is this? I want to hear the story. How? And then that's when that social justice impact can happen.
Right.
Because then you open that door to like, okay, there's a lot more going on here than just, it's a t-shirt, it's so much more than that. So yeah, be you, be the trend is the one that I really love to like push out there and live by.
I love that. We'll kind of with that. I know that when I put on my Sky Eagle, there's something about the eagle and the sky. They're both vast, and one, kind of exists in the other. That sort of thing. I cannot thank you enough for sharing so much of your time and your talent and your art and your hope. And like I said, we really look forward to making this a long-term relationship. So feel free to call upon us. We may be small, but we're mighty. Okay. And we don't mind becoming activists with you. So thank you so much, Dante Visco. We really appreciate, and we hope to see you in Taos someday soon. Take care.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
If you are thinking about harming yourself or attempting suicide, tell someone who can help right away. Call 911 for emergency services. Go to the nearest hospital emergency room. Call or text 988 to connect with the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. This podcast is made possible thanks to a grant from the Overwatch Alliance, and it's produced by the Resurrecting Lives Foundation at the Sycamore Studio. Music is written, performed, and graciously provided by Tim Beckley. Remember, when you work toward brain injury recovery, it is best to journey with a friend and keep your gait steady and your spirit strong. Finally, always seek shelter from your storms.
From Baghdad to Basra, the Boston, the Bakersfield, the hottest battle I ever fought is raging inside of me. My brain has been battered, scrambled and rattled, and no one knows what's going on.